Alright, a little bit of video here on Saturday morning, the 1st of June. This is a really unique Airbnb we did. There's the Hummer and the usual setup. And there's Sparky. So yeah, we have to take both vehicles because we're going to Montana Fiddle Camp. That's our third time there. We skipped 1 year in between, not on purpose. And this one, I don't like it as much. We've got so much going on, so I only planned 2 days. So it's 2 10-hour drives. Which means, we come here. Oh, here's a really great place with some really great ambiance. Quick, grab a coffee, hit the road. Really love to spend a day here. This is, you can't tell from this spot. This is like one of these towns you blink and you're driven by. Of course, you never would drive by because it's on a small road. But this is Nome, North Dakota, not Nome, Alaska, Nome, North Dakota. And what a clever idea for an Airbnb. This is their old schoolhouse. So instead of tearing it down, they converted it into hotel spaces. So I'll do a little video of the inside as well. So this is the old schoolhouse, and this is actually swankier than the old schoolhouse I attended in Indiana, but it is quite nice. Good morning. Just doing a little tour. This is kind of unique, isn't it? So you can still kind of go into the old classrooms and things downstairs. And then this is where rooms have been converted into hotel rooms. So it really is quite nice. Wish we had more time to relax and enjoy it. And you can see, like a lot of these little towns, it's a patch of houses, and you are out in farmland. Okay, I kind of zoomed the GoPro in a bit because the room is small. I had to be careful because Kathy's getting ready. Didn't want to surprise her walking in with a GoPro. So this is an example of one of the rooms. It's modest size but quite comfortable. And the bed's perfectly nice. There's some kind of thing here with felted wool. Kathy and I were discussing about 5 years ago. We were in Lithuania and they had a restored old manor home, and they were doing some of the traditional crafts, and they did the same thing. They somehow work wool in a special way, and you can make really interesting objects out of it. So you can see some of these things are, they have the wool on them. Now that's a hard thing with some wool on it, but they actually make like three-dimensional stuff that's all wool. I'm assuming that's wool. Funnily enough, they had like busts of famous historical figures, the one in Lithuania, one of which was Donald Trump, and it was amazingly realistic, but made out of felted wool. It was quite funny. So one of the things I kind of had in mind, as Kath and I do more with the YouTube channel, and I should point, I have no idea when we're going to edit this video. The editing equipment is in our house in Illinois, and we're going to be living in California. But we're probably going to buy a laptop when we're out in California, start doing more portable video editing like most people do. But mostly what I promised myself, what is it that we want to do with our content? And really what, in our case, it's pilgrimages and spiritual reflection, because that's why we do what we do. Why do I sleep in a tent when I could sleep in my own bed? Why do I go on an adventure and leave behind the comfort of my own bed? Well, why do I do most of the things I do? It's very simply because I feel called to do it. So what did I feel is missing to some extent from this cultural movement. I think to me COVID shocked us into a deep awakening. And I've always had an overdeveloped sense of my own mortality. I think too much about each passing moment that I can never get back. And needless to say, it doesn't lead to a positive, perky disposition when I start to feel that way. But it is important for us to reflect on the fact, not constantly, but fairly frequently, we are not of this world. We only get so many years, and we can't just fall into a groove or a rut of routine activity and suddenly wake up one day, as one famous woman reportedly famously quipped on her deathbed, "You blink and it's over." I don't think any of us want to reflect on our lives and feel that way. To me.
So after that fairly long drive across the Dakotas, pressing it hard over 2 days, we did arrive at Montana Fiddle Camp. And fairly quickly after arriving on Sunday, we went to Mass for the Feast of Corpus Christi. It was a wonderful service, and we recognized the priest who was leading it because we had seen him at Fiddle Camp the previous year. So we were very impressed by the level of organization and effort. In fact, I commented on it the next day. Well, for no particularly good reason, I figured I'd swing down here. It's Monday, first real day of, well, I guess that's not true. Sunday was a day of camp. We did go to Mass in, see if I can remember it, Centerville. I believe it was Holy Trinity, and the same Filipino priest whose name escapes me just has so much energy and did an absolutely brilliant job getting them to do a Eucharistic procession and benediction after the Mass. And just knowing that he goes from Belt to Centerville to, I can't remember if it's Rainsford or another one of the towns. Man, he covers incredible distance every Saturday and Sunday doing the liturgy. So that was pretty impressive, what he was willing to do, and that he pulled it off so well. One thing is I've been discussing overlanding and pilgrimage and kind of spiritual reflections. One challenge for me this year, as I remembered from last year, it was just very hard to relax when I wasn't in camp, thinking, well, what if someone rips off my campsite? Which here in Montana, this part of Montana, is presumably pretty unlikely. So that's just more a question of adjusting your gear to your frame of mind and to your circumstances. Yeah, so you can see this camp spot gets a lot of use. The grass is matted down a lot more than it was last year. Looks like someone built that so they could protect a campfire. Kind of a neat idea. And again, this is where I stayed last year, and it was really nice. Now right now the weather is gorgeous, and it's completely misleading because it's been cold, cloudy, and windy so far, much of today and much of yesterday, which kind of put a damper on things. But it looks gorgeous right now, like that front blew over. But the gentleman just walked through camp saying tonight it's supposed to get down in the high 30s and 50-mile-an-hour winds. So I'm going to have to batten down the hatches tonight. Monday. Today I slept in. And it's more a note to my future self when I'm editing these videos. I have really been struggling. Just don't know how to describe it, except like in The Hobbit, or one of the Lord of the Rings movies, The Hobbit describes himself as like butter spread over too much bread. And he's describing kind of the spiritual angst of having been the bearer of the ring. And that, in loose terms, is why Kathy and I are seriously contemplating retiring. Well, Kathy is now retired, actually. And I think next year I will retire, hopefully into full-time ministry. So I asked myself, as part of my challenge, I'm a little under the weather. Is it fatigue? Or is it just the angst I used to feel before I became a permanent deacon? Really feeling in my heart that I'd been called to serve God in a different way, and that I had been failing to do so. But I've been talking poor Kathy to death about trying to understand how I feel. Why do I feel such a strong, deep sense of unease when everything is fine? Every aspect of our life is nothing but blessing upon blessing. in my mind, I keep inventing controversies, like my boss is going to do something bad, or something's not going to work out at work. And then I just have this sense of unease, and I realize it is just a very toxic state of mind that I've been in probably for the last year and a half, and I'm slowly crawling out of it. So today I slept in. I made no effort to get up. I ate brunch, and I kind of sat around the campsite much of the morning, and the weather kind of rewarded that, since it was overcast, occasional bits of drizzle, and quite cool. But I've just left camp really for the first time exploring, other than going to church with Kathy yesterday. And this is where I think I need to work on this concept of, my sister keeps calling it like Tom 2.0, or my brother's name is Justin 2.0. So what are you retiring into? Or as Kathy and I said as we started this process of discernment, what the young person would present themselves to a Benedictine abbey, and the question that confronts them by whomever answers the gate is, what do you seek? So that's really, for me, in these spiritual reflections, what do I seek? And is this sense of unease perhaps somewhat of a message from God to say, you're seeking the wrong things. You've got enough money in savings. Your kids are taken care of. At this point, maybe this is just God telling me it's time to move on to the next step. So I'll be doing a lot of reflection as to what is my 2.0 as a permanent deacon in the Catholic Church. Is it youth ministry? Is it young couples ministry? There are so many challenges in our culture. There's so much work to be done to try to bring people the peace of mind that comes from a healthy relationship with God. As a Catholic, that healthy relationship involves receiving the Eucharist, participating in the sacraments. So when I walk around places like this, I think about that vocation. I think about my scattered and flustered mind right now. And I think about Pope St. John Paul II, who obviously lived through far more difficult times than anything I could ever experience. And he used to take young people up into the wilderness of the Tatra Mountains. And I've always felt a similar sort of calling. Maybe that is what God is calling me to do, whether it's with young couples or older couples, or whether it's with youth groups. Get them out to very beautiful places like this, where you have no choice but to unplug. No choice but to go deep down inside yourself, contemplate God, contemplate God's amazing creation, contemplate our place within God's creation, and discern how we can best glorify God through the lives He's given us. Well, according to Gaia, I've been here before, driven this road. I'm just kind of doing an easy loop. I'm not looking to make big new explores today. So I just drove 89, and this is the first turn off after the Nyhart Inconvenience Store. What intrigued me immediately is I could feel the truck struggling a little bit. Not struggling, but you could feel it making more effort. So I was climbing quite a bit. So it's 56 degrees here. The sun's gone back behind clouds, and there is a lot of snow on the ground already, or still I should say. So that's interesting. The other times I've been here, I would find snow, but it was well hidden. It surprised me a few times. This time, there's just snow everywhere at this elevation. I'd have to look at Gaia. I'll do that here in a second, see what the elevation is. So I may have to turn around and come back. When you see that much snow, you don't know if the Forest Service road's going to go through. But we'll see. And I'll peek in here, just curious now to look at the Gaia screen and see. And there you go. Well, yeah, elevation 7,000 feet. So that would definitely explain why there's snow here. It was sunny and about 70 degrees in camp. Did rain a few times. So this is only a short time removed from that tape where I was recording, where I had done dispersed camping last year. So here you can see at about, 7,300 feet. And then you climb up a bit more, how much snow there is. I've been driving over snow in the road, and it's been between like 34 and 39 degrees. So, interesting. Wasn't really looking for an adventure today. I'm also waiting for it to rain. I've got my CO2 tank. I did not air down. TPMS was giving me some weird messages, so hopefully I don't have a leak in a tire. But I did a physical inspection. They all look fine. So when I finally get out of the rain, I'll pop out the CO2 tank and see whether there really is a low tire. Jumped out just to take a recording. It's a clear road back, but some snow does cover it. That road doesn't really take me where I want to go. And that is what is in front of me. Now I think I'll go a ways because it's pretty set up. And again, the Hummer doesn't have any trouble with this kind of, you know, like what is this, like 6 inches of snow. But I'm not really looking for an adventure today. So actually I'm standing here, I'm thinking, no, why would I drive this way? I'm just turn around and go back. You can see quite a few people have been through here, mostly with snowmobiles, I think, though. This is the only spot I've seen so far that looked at all challenging. I'm looking at it now, I think I'm okay to proceed. Not thrilled with the fact that this is here, and I can't really tell how bad it is ahead. If it weren't raining, I'd fly the drone, but I've got lockers front and rear and a winch, so I should be fine. But I was definitely not out shopping for an adventure today. This is what it's like driving in the mountains. You don't know what you're going to get when you're at elevation. All right, I ran pretty far ahead. I'm just now catching my breath. There's one deep spot with speed I know I could get through, and it looks like it breaks up after that. But I am miles and miles a Forest Service road away from getting back to a main road. So I'm going to turn around and go back. Again, I didn't go out for an adventure today, so otherwise this would be fun. I'm like 99% chance I blow through there and have an exciting time, but I don't feel like messing around today. I'm going to turn around. I got a nice dry spot here. Just drive back the way I came. Okay, now that one stood still for me, which is nice. I don't think that's a mule deer. I think that's an elk, judging by the size of the rump and the overall size of the animal. And I'm no expert. I don't think that's a mule deer. I think that is a cow elk. Don't know if it's the same one that just scampered off a minute ago. Oh, interesting. Yeah, there it goes. Kind of trotting off there. Well, hopefully not too exciting a night tonight. There's a wind advisory. It's not clear whether it starts tomorrow morning or tonight, but supposedly gusts up to 65 miles an hour, so we'll see how the tent does. Well, last night was fairly exciting. Reportedly wind gusts up to 65 miles an hour, but looks like everything survived okay. Woke up quite a few times from the wind noise, but no damage. I think one chair had gotten knocked over. Nothing blew out of the trailer. So put that one in the wind column. I did not wake up in Oz this morning. Nice visit. Between struggling with my own health, I was just a little bit under the weather, and struggling with the weather itself, occasional cold and rainy days, I did finally manage on a couple of occasions to explore a decent hiking trail that is a very short distance down Highway 89 from the church camp where Montana Fiddle Camp is held. So I got some nice stills. I had commented at one point that this year there were far fewer wildflowers. Just seems like spring arrived a little bit later this time. But despite the lack of wildflowers, the scenery was still spectacular, and I enjoyed a very nice, long, and relaxing hike, and I didn't have to go too far from camp to get to the trailhead. Well, I bumped into someone from camp who was jogging back on the trail. She said, yeah, it opens up just ahead of you, which it has. And you can kind of see this must be a burn area. Quite a bit of dead trees, just kind of pin cushioning the mountain slopes here. And you can see some of the closer trees, you can see where they're black from the fire. Hopefully that'll come in focus. I'll zoom back out here, and that's the trail, and this is where it kind of emerges into the clearing. So this is the trail I started the other day. Today I grabbed a canteen. I had to do the unforgivable. I had to check in at work, kind of an important call. And then I on the way back, I decided to stop here and finish the hike. So kind of one more view here, out a little further down the trail into the burn area. That kind of gives you a sense of the scale, how much of that area is effectively deforested from the fire. And on the other side of the valley, you can see the rest of the forest is largely untouched. Well, according to Gaia, the trail continues kind of into the end of the valley there and then just stops. But looking around in the grass here, I don't really even see any pressed down grass anymore. It's not like you can get lost. I mean, terrain features pretty easy to follow. You stay in the valley, and when you're done, you turn around and go back. But I'm really not up for climbing over all these down trees where the trail seems to have effectively ended. And I think I've seen what I set out to see. Looked at Guy and I forgot. I'm not sure exactly how long I've been hiking. Not bad. If somewhere between 1 and 1.5 hours. Well, I suppose I can just pull it out of my pocket here. So and again, I've been just moseying and stopping, taking some pictures, grabbing some water drinks. So it's 1:40 p.m. I'm definitely ready for lunch. Yeah, an hour and 10 minutes. So not a terrible long hike to get here. And if you really wanted, you could spend another 20-30 minutes going to the end of the valley. Well, that is interesting. I'll zoom in a bit there. I can't tell in the viewfinder if the camera is really grasping it. But you can see approximately where the fire stopped up that rise there. So you can see as you come out of the valley, it's all burned, and then there's a lip of green, and that's all fresh green trees. It's actually quite interesting. Okay, enough of this. Time to hike back to the truck and then back to... Okay, well that's what it looks like as you come out of the trail. Over there is that private property with the school bus back behind it. There's, again, as you kind of enter the trail, you kind of go up a slight rise there. And there's Highway 89. Took about 2 hours and 5 minutes, much faster on the way back, obviously, because I wasn't stopping as often or trying to take pictures. But very beautiful trail. Just a little path in the forest. Huh, and I remembered correctly. I just named it on Guy. I was like, I think it was 737. Yep, trail 737. And so here are some of the signs. I mentioned that utility easement. This is more interesting to me. This is giving you some of the geology. I did not pull up the camera when I was driving down 89 and saw one of the most fascinating examples I've ever seen of uplift, where you could literally see the bedrock undulate like that right along the side of the road. So that was pretty cool. I mean, you read about these things and people talk about how parts of the crust get pushed up, but there you could just see the lines making these very sharp bends. And you can see there it explains there's basically 3 different, significantly different ages of lines there. Now there's a lot of other information here too about early transportation and some of the early mining activity that was going on. So I think that's kind of cool. Like if you look at Nyhart there in 1892, it's actually quite a bit bigger than the little strip of buildings that's there now. So like a lot of these mountain communities, they kind of start as mining and then end up, hopefully the sock is controlling the dead cat here, it's hopefully controlling the wind noise. But you can see it a lot where a little mining town either disappears or it becomes a much smaller tourist town. This talks about the missiles, the Minuteman missiles that were here. So where I camped last time, the locals tell me is an old missile silo, and that road noise has come right off. I'm standing right next to Highway 89. This is why I filmed the easement there, the utility easement. This talks about the Milwaukee Road, which has fascinated me because to me, obviously, Milwaukee, that was a Midwestern railroad. And that's Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railway. And they decided to strike out to the Pacific Ocean, which I think is pretty cool. And this talks about how one of the ways they got the assist up through the mountains was by electrifying the track. I'm just curious, how that worked. I might read more about it one day. Like, did they put the cars on a siding and then the electric locomotive takes them from there? I assume it was a coal-fired steam locomotive or a diesel locomotive that got them to the electrified rails. And that Valley 2 dot is what it says is across the street. That's what I ended up taking a little, really no way for me to get the GoPro out of the image there, but that's what I was filming a few seconds ago. That's the utility easement right behind me. It's harder to see there, but you can just kind of make out a post and the lines right there. So it's just a sign there of this is a road that I drove last year, but I had to drive it in a hurry because I was running out of time for the student concert, and I passed up a lot of just absolutely gorgeous scenery. So today I'm just going to drive it, taking my dear sweet time, kind of back the route that I took last time, driving it in reverse. I might turn around in the middle and come back. I might go all the way back around. Have to be a little careful. Again, this year it's a little different. There's a lot of snow around, so at some point I may have to turn around and come back. Be a good place to pull out. There's a little extension here on a hairpin to give people with long vehicles an opportunity to maneuver. Since I'm out here all by myself, I think I'll go ahead and monopolize it for a few minutes. I'm going to see if it's kosher to fly the drone here. It's in a national forest. I'll see if it's a restricted zone or not. The angel of the Lord came back a second time, touched him, and said, "Get up and eat, or the journey will be too much for you." He got up, ate, and drank. Then, strengthened by that food, he walked 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God, Horeb. There he came to a cave where he took shelter. But the word of the Lord came to him, "Why are you here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been most zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, but the Israelites have forsaken your covenant. They have destroyed your altars and murdered your prophets by the sword. I alone remain, and they seek to take my life." Then the Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. The Lord will pass by." There was a strong and violent wind rending the mountains and crushing rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. After the fire, a light, silent sound. When he heard this, Elijah hid his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Thus says the Lord, "The heavens are my throne, the earth my footstool. What house can you build for me? Where is the place of my rest? My hand made all these things when all of them came to be. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds in the sky. They do not sow or reap. They gather nothing into barns. Yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are not you more important than they? Can any of you, by worrying, add a single moment to your lifespan? Why are you anxious about clothes? Learn from the way the wild flowers grow. They do not work or spin, but I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was clothed like one of them. Got a little designation, North Pilgrim Trailhead. And there's a few signs here, mostly about bear safety. And I do see that off to my left here, there is a little bit of a hiking trail. I'm not going to go very far down it. I'm not going to grab my bear spray or anything to drink. Again, I wasn't feeling so great again today, so I was not going to make this a hiking trip. Well, it is good to burn a few calories and stretch your legs in such a gorgeous place. Maybe just walk up to that sign. So I hear various types of grasshoppers and locusts kind of buzzing in the grass. And you can see some of the wildflowers are starting to bloom, just like when I went out yesterday. Just getting started. Really quite beautiful. Within a day or so, most of the meadows along the trails are just going to be exploding with color. I'm just going to walk back to that trailhead marker, see what it says facing the other way. If it says bear safety, I'll be very annoyed. Some really beautiful daisies. I've got my plant identification app. I use Picture This back on the phone. But again, I'm just kind of driving around. I'm not trying to do naturalist research. I don't know if the GoPro will pick it up. I think I'm picking up the trail across the valley. Alex, this must be a really spectacular trail. If I ever come here prepared one of these years, I'll bring some provisions and some water and try and knock one of these really beautiful trails out. Really beautiful. You can see how it just kind of fishback's brilliant. You can tell the mind is still not sharp. I'm still a bit under the weather. Now, looking down there, I don't think that's Belt Creek, but it could be. I think that's Pigeon Creek or something like that. But boy, is that beautiful. I don't know if the GoPro is really doing it justice. Kind of see down into the valley, and you can see the water kind of running down inside. This is definitely a gorgeous hiking trail. Been so amazed that the Little Belt Mountains don't get more attention, as I understand from the locals. They're fine with that. Some interesting caves up there, up on that cliffside. Can't tell if they're natural or not. Going down, and it drops down beautifully into that river. Oh, there we go. That just says to trailhead. So I'm not sure entirely which trail this is, but it was sort of marked on the Gaia. So you can see there's an upper trail and a lower trail. So I think if you come up here, you go to the trailhead. If you go down there, presumably you're continuing on the main trail. But it's a gorgeous day right here. I'm on the leeward side of the mountain, so I'm not getting a lot of the wind. And just absolutely stunning views in all directions. And that's just what I've come to expect from these little explorations in the Little Belt Mountains. Well, that was about the extent of our adventures this year at Montana Fiddle Camp and the Little Belt Mountains. If you enjoy the bluegrass, Montana Fiddle Camp does have a YouTube channel where they post the wonderful evening concerts. After this adventure, Kathy and I loaded up and drove down to Ontario, California, where we are currently staying.